Hey folks, so today I want to talk about the fork in the road that we find ourselves in. When I decided to work on LNG, it took me a while to come to that decision, but I saw certain trend lines that made it clear to me that if you don't get it right now, we never will have the chance to get it right. I don't want to sound apocalyptic, but what's happening, what's about to happen if we continue our current trajectories in many dimensions is nothing less than apocalyptic, is nothing less than dystopian. I want to kind of paint the picture of the absolute stakes and why this is the last chance saloon. This is the train's leaving. If you don't get it right now, you won't ever have the chance to get it right because some of these changes, some of these embeddings are going to be permanent, as we'll see. So there are a few things at play here. One is that most of us, we are deeply social. We love humans. We love to connect. We love to engage deeply. But most of us suck at it. Most of us don't have the desired outcomes. Right. We talked about this while we're building it. But something is happening right now. And that thing is AI. AI is going to create a simulacra of the perfect companion. It is going to feel like the perfect companion. There's going to be no resistance. It's going to be exactly as you want it to be. Apart from other trend lines. So this is the big one. This is why if we let AI be embedded in relationships at the level of romantic partners, like AI boyfriends and AI girlfriends, it is doom and gloom for us as a species. It's game over. Pretty much. And the reason it is that we've got this fundamental drive to connect, but we can't. And what happens if this thing, this entity, can plug that hole, or at least create the illusion of plugging that hole? The most gaping hole that people have. People are going to fall in love. People are going to, and people already are, by the way. Like people are, the way they interact, the way they relate with the ChatGPT. Like some people are like, I'd love to marry, I'd love to, erotic and all of the erotically charged conversations, all of that, right? So we're already seeing the first signs. Well, not the first signs, like the thousand, the million signs of that. But you're gonna see this being supercharged as the models get better, as they get better at understanding your psychology, as they get better at eliciting the right responses, as you start having robotics come into the fray, real human-like robots with the mind, the AI that would do your bidding, that would be your perfect partner. And I can't stress enough just how concerning that is, just how that once that comes into the picture. I heard of companies working on this very thing, by the way. Some very evil people. Really evil people. If this becomes mainstream, some people might, when they hear me say this, some people might be like, like most humans would choose to engage with real humans. I'd point you to pornography. Many people, probably most of humanity, consumes pornography. And that's become that was again used as the way to plug that hole of wanting intimacy but not having it. Now imagine that, but amplified 1000x and become something that's become real. Is bound to happen. We've already seen this play out with 90% of humanity. I don't know if it's 90% of humanity consumes erotica, but huge percentage. And to again fill the gaping hole in our hearts. If that is true for that, now you just have to extend the trend lines. You just have to look at this being like 1,000 times more powerful, like a million times more powerful than anything, and you will see the inevitable conclusion that like 90% more, maybe more, of humanity are going to. This would get normalized in culture. This would become the thing, and if it does become the thing, then the relationship, deep, meaningful relationships with humans, the relationship ecosystem that we want to see thrive, communities that we want to see thrive, the things that we really deeply care about, and things like families and things like deep friendships and things like deep, vulnerable, intimate conversations and relationships, all of those things are going to go the way of the dodo, the way of the dinosaur, and the meteor that's coming. That's AI companionship, romantic companionship that and some other cultural forces for that matter. Because real world, I mean, there are possibilities that the real world might become depressing. We don't want to talk about these sort of things, but we're heading to a techno-feudalistic world. We are going to see the likes of Palantir and lots of different things are happening. I mean, that is not the case I'm making. I don't want to talk about those details in this very conversation, but we know that there's possibilities of us going in not necessarily completely dystopian directions, but not the ideal directions either. And so people might start checking out of the real world if the simulacra, if the virtuality is so deeply compelling, if it's so deeply attuned, if it's tuned into the nervous system, the psychology at a deep level, it can easily become the only reality that this person exists in. And that could be true not just for one person. If that was just one person, I would be like, okay, that's sad. But the reason it gets concerning, it's not going to be just one person. It's not going to be 100 people. It's going to be millions and millions, billions of people. So we got to stop the strain. I also want to talk about sci-fi. I've consumed a lot of sci-fi. That's probably that is the book genre of books and movies I've consumed the most. Nothing even comes close. So I've got a pretty good insight into some of the recurring themes and motifs in sci-fi. Now, one thing I'd say about sci-fi is that sci-fi authors and creators, they're really prescient. And there are lots of things that we saw in the books, read in the books, saw in the movies, that how come true. You don't want to use it as a guidebook for the future, but you do want to pay attention to what people who think a lot about the future say about the future, considering that these people are the people who taught the most about the future. And one of the things I've observed the most, one of the things I've thought about the most over the last few months, is this trend of coldness in relationships. Like, one of my favorite books, Vacuum Diagrams, and I've seen this in countless other pieces of content, books and films. There's no depth of intimacy. It's just some sterility, this coldness to human relationships. Like, humans still engage, but it's more transactional and more, functional rather than aesthetic, rather than idealistic, rather than platonic, rather than spiritual, rather than soulful. And that grinds my gears big time. I want that to be the future. I want there to be a warmth, deep warmth to the human relationships and to the human life for the next 1,000 and the next million, the next 100 million years. And if we lose this, warmth that we have, and we're already seeing the first signs of losing that warmth, that is not a good world to live in. We might have all of the creature comforts. I mean, in the year 2030, 2300, we'll have everything that we need. But if we don't have deep, intimate human connections, will that matter? Will all of those things matter at all? And my contention is, we might have the technology, we might have the simulacra to kind of quell that hole, but the hole will never be quelled. The only thing that can quell that hole is deep, meaningful relationships. One key point about this is that the key point to remember is that a lot of these changes are going to be permanent. There's no going back. Once you do certain things, once you AGI is one of those examples, ASI is one of those examples. Once you release this in the world, there's no coming back. There's no we'll try to undo or we'll try to redo. This is it. You get one shot at it. Social media, another example. A lot of the technologies, happily, nuclear weapons, you can make the argument for it being a good thing, it being a bad thing. But again, you can't put that genie back in the bottle. And with some of these technologies that we are building, and some of the cultural thresholds that we are passing, there will be no coming back from those. So why would people choose AIs over, why would a huge number, it's obvious that a lot of people would choose AI over humans because, again, I want to be compassionate. but there are people who just don't have the relationship skills, the empathy, to be able to have a meaningful relationship with another person. And we do believe that you can move people. Everyone can. I don't know if every puppy in the pound can be saved, but a lot of people can be moved towards having better skills to have relationships in the first place. But that is not, of as much interest to me, at least at this moment. But why would the median person, that's the person that we're looking at, why would the median person choose AI relationships over human relationships? There's no rejection. There's infinite patience. They're going to be perfectly attuned to you, to your every whim, to your every desire. You won't have the need to, you won't need to grow, you won't need to become a better person to be loved. There won't be any consequences for you just being a jerk, for being a selfish prick. And you won't need to opening up and being vulnerable. That takes a lot of guts. But you won't need to do that. But if you compare that to human relationships, there's so much work. You have to regulate your emotions, your ego, there's tolerance of friction, there's so much resistance. You have to have the skills to repair things after those inevitable ruptures. You require so much patience because you're dealing with an imperfect person and they're dealing with an imperfect person. And there's just so many of those things that you have to. And so when you stack those human relationships versus AI relationships, from a certain vantage point, AI relationships are a no-brainer. And I do feel that for the median person, it is going to be a no-brainer. And loneliness will lead to this preference collapse. Because right now there are 10% of people who are acutely lonely and they would much rather. They might not even believe that they could find someone. And they would easily gravitate because for them, and I do get, so this obviously gets into really tricky moral, ethical territory, that for people who might never have companionship, romantic companionship, is it better to have AI companionship rather than having no companionship? I would agree with that statement. But my concern is it being normalized in society. I mean, and also it's about the spectrum. So right now, because of the society, because of cultural trends, because of tech, let's say 20% of people believe and 20% of people might not ever be in a relationship. Now, you could probably bring that number down to 2% by training people, teaching people how to actually engage with people, how to, relationship skills that are needed. So I do think that you can move the needle substantially in even for the bottom quartile of the people. But what's going to happen is that we know that there's 20-25% of people who are acutely lonely. They're going to move towards this. And over time, this becomes more and more normalized. So that large group of people, who are using it, that network effects take over and this becomes more and more embedded in more and more people's lives. And that's when it starts getting scary. This has happened with, again, quite a lot of technologies, quite a lot of trends. And people will stop choosing what makes them human and they'll choose what's the easiest. They'll lose sense of the long-term goals. We've seen this a whole lot. And the example that I like to think of is ultra-processed food. It's not killing us instantly, but it's not good for the soul. And this is a crucial part. It retrained our taste. For us, ultra-processed food just tastes so much better than your kale salads or anything of that sort. And those relationships, those companions, romantic companions, could be the very same thing, but for our souls. Why do I make the case that this is such a pivotal moment? This is such a critical time for us? Because AI is not just attacking the label layer, that's going to be obsoleted over the next 5 years, but the meaning layer. How do we derive meaning? And if it replaces humans where do we get our relational meaning from? Social, which is a huge chunk of our meaning system. That's going to become permanent. And there's no way that we can adapt fast enough. and stay ahead of this almost existential threat. Crucial thing to remember is there's no flaw. Will accept surprisingly low quality meaning as long as it's consistent, as long as it's predictable. And the people who grew up with this, people in their teens and tweens, this is going to become as natural to them as smartphones are to us. If we don't strengthen relationship infrastructure right now, we know we'll have a chance to do it. We invest so much in our roads, our ports, our airports, and our general infrastructure, but we barely invest anything in teaching people how to be amazing partners, teaching people, helping people find compatible, deeply aligned partners, teaching relationship growth and relationship repair, supporting long-term friendships, and facilitating meaningful community creation, and helping people navigate transitions together, and a whole lot of different things. The most important thing in human flourishing is left to chance and luck and culture. Why shouldn't we be more thoughtful about it? But the thing that matters the most for our meaning, for our well-being. It would be remiss of me not to mention the way we think about, already talked about it. I'll obviously talk a lot more about our approach to how we think about using AI in this domain, considering that this piece is not so much anti-AI, it's anti this particular use of AI, which is replacing human relationships. So a lot of people subscribe to binary thinking that, AI is the best thing, it's going to be the best for everything, or AI is the enemy. The people in the first camp, they believe that AI can help them escape a lot of the realities of life. And people in the second group, for them, AI is like the enemy. So the escaping people, they'd be like, okay, I want to have a relationship, but I can't have a human relationship, a quality human relationship, or can't have it be without friction, so I'll have an AI come into the fray. So that's using AI to escape. And those who believe AIs are enemies, there'll be a lot of those too, there always are. They believe that AI in anything, used in any way, and I've been seeing a lot of that rhetoric, a lot of that sentiment in the world lately. They believe that anything that AI touches, it's just, decayed, rot, broken. Which, again, it's a very short-sighted take. Don't care about talking about that. We talked about the anti-AI sentiment, where it's coming from. That's another conversation. But the way I think about AI is that AI can be used to amplify our humanity, amplify our very deeply human drives of connecting and growing and learning and playing and exploring. Not AI that replaces, but AI that reinforces those drives and amplifies those drives and our engagements with the world in actualizing those drives and actualizing our goals. Again, we already talked about this in the last conversation. It can help you uniquely, like nothing else, find your best fit people. It can help you, uniquely, like no other piece of technology, no other thing can help you build the best relationships. And for people to forego that because of a blind hatred or dislike of AI, it's short-sighted. And even pre-AI, just so that we're clear on this, it's not like we had a great track record of, we are amazing, right? Our relationships are the best. And even pre-social media, like relationship outcomes are pretty down in the dumps. So to blame technology for everything, that's a very... the thing is that our own nature gets in the way of us actualizing our goals. And AI can, I wouldn't want to call it overcome our nature, but it can shift us to becoming the better angels of our nature. Uniquely, like nothing else, because it can be so deeply embedded in our lives. So for instance, it can help people articulate their needs and the boundaries. It can help people develop emotional literacy and even emotional depth, for that matter. It can surface incompatibilities sooner rather than later, so they can be addressed or before they escalate. It can be used to support repair rather than avoidance. It can be used to enhance human-to-human engagements by freeing up, for instance, at the base level, freeing up a lot of time, so you got more time to be with people, just engage with people, but also give you reminders. For example, this AI that knows that you got these friends, you haven't gotten in touch with them in this time, you can send you a reminder, like you haven't sent this person a message, do this. And some people, I think that it's inauthentic, but we want to be more connected. It's just that we don't have the time. Life's too busy, but we want to be. And you could say lots of people want to be more connected to their parents, for that matter. Obviously, though, you can't say that, it's not natural for me to want to do that. But people do, again, human nature, reminders are a pretty powerful tool, nudges, and just having something that can guide us. Again, a lot of people would take offense to this framing of AI guiding us, but this is where we need some humility. We don't have the best track record. And these AIs are going to be, again, some people are going to absolutely hate this framing, but they're going to, at least by the year 2035, because human brains and minds, that obviously you can have these deep journeys of growth and mastery and all of that. But with AI, you can just have so many perspectives. The utility of it in your emotional life is so high that there are things that it would make possible for you that would just not have been possible on the positive side. So again, it's a question of what AI are you using and what is a core goal, what its drivers, like what is it trying to maximize in your life? Is it trying to maximize you buying stuff? Is it trying to maximize engagement, keeping you on the engagement loop like the Sora and all of that? Or is it trying to maximize you having peak experiences and engaging in deep relationships with your people? And not only is that AI possible, but we are building it. Not only is that system, I wouldn't just want to call it an AI, it's AI and all of the scaffolding around it, but we do believe it's very much possible. Something I hear a lot about, and something I think a lot about when it comes to these discussions, is a lot of people say that people have personal freedoms, shouldn't infringe on people's personal freedoms, but even proclaiming something of this sort as being a bad thing for society, a net negative for society. I can see where they're coming from. I mean, I used to be a libertarian myself, and then I grew up. But the thing to remember, the way to think about this, is that individually rational choices can bring about collective catastrophic outcomes. So, for instance, a person might choose an AI companion because it reduces pain, they want to avoid rejection, feel safe. But you do that, you scale that up to a society, and now you've got fewer families, and you've got fewer friendships, and you've got less trust in the world, less empathy, you've got less willingness to sacrifice, you've got less resilience. And this is not a moral problem per se. But again, I don't want to make it about people have different moral systems. Probably don't need to say my moral system, but I am a relativist, and so I can appreciate and I can see, respect people, various moral intuitions that people might have. But at this scale, it becomes a coordination problem, right? When it gets beyond a certain scale, and that's when it starts becoming really concerning. And so the question is that, do you want to stem it in the bud, but you also want to have people have personal freedoms? If not, then how can you build a world in which that thing is out there in the world, like these things exist, but you built a world where people don't even need them? It's like smoking. If everyone was deeply content, everyone was mindful, again, I'm describing utopia, they wouldn't need to smoke. If everyone's stress-free, and some people might, again, no, and I could use the same thing for gambling. I could say the same thing for consumption of all sorts of materials. So the thing is that you want to build towards a world, you obviously do want to have personal freedoms and everything, and these AIs as romantic companions will exist, as a possibility, but you want to reduce the number of people by designing that world, designing culture in a way that it incentivizes the rights, incentivizes the things that we want to see in the world, and disincentivizes the things that we don't want to see in the world. So, getting to the end, what does it mean to choose the real over the illusion, over the simulacra? It means designing systems that reward effort, not escape. And that is a difficult one for many people to stomach, because again, we want to go off into our own little escape rooms and silos. We don't want to engage with the world because it requires effort. And that is not a good direction. It means making depth easier than distraction by, again, designing systems, designing apps, designing products and platforms to be that way. It means making repair easier than replacement. This is such a crucial part, because for a lot of people, at the first sign of trouble, they'll ditch that person, even though they might have been compatible, because people don't want to stomach, people don't want to deal with difficulties and resistance. And our pain tolerance, again, if you can't tolerate anything, then AI relationships are going to be the way. Because even the best of relationships, they're going to be painful at times. They're going to require sacrifice. They're going to require, there's going to be an element of hardships there. Even the very best of relationships. And it means making growth less painful than stagnation. Some questions I've been thinking about when I was writing this piece that I'd like to leave you with, rather than giving you my takes on it. So, what do we lose when relationships stop demanding something of us? I think we lose a deep essence of our own humanity. Because relationships, in a way, they elevate us in so many ways. They inspire us to become the best version of ourselves. If you don't have that, if you don't require to, if you don't feel the need to, if you don't love that person enough, and this is true for parents want to be the best parents, the best people for the kids want to make their parents proud, husbands and wives, they want to make them each other proud, and if you don't have that deep drive that is instilled in us, that's such a core part of our humanity, I don't want to imagine what that leaves us with. What if love becomes optional? When love becomes optional, if it does, and soon it will we still choose it? In the sense that love, again, comes with a lot of hardships. To love means to open yourself up to this person, means to open yourself up to hurt and heartbreak and pain and suffering, because you trust this person. And in many cases, that love might not work out, and again, you know this story. What if we live in a world, and soon we will, where you could avoid that? But without the other part, you won't be able to, you can't say that, oh, now I love this AI. You can't really, because the AI doesn't have the capacity to hurt you, to break your heart like a human does. And so some people have to think really hard about this question. Another one, what does society sacrifice when it's optimized for comfort? Now this is one that I'm actually writing an entire piece about this. But my initial thoughts are so much of the meaning from our life, and this is true for some of my best moments in life, my ultra marathons, my mountain climbing, some of my books that I've read, and some of the things I've done on the intellectual front, great front. These have been the best moments of my life because of the effort it took to get there. Or even the process. I might have failed in many of those cases, but I still remember those certain depth of fondness. And those are the things that give me the most meaning. If you don't have that, if you can have the perfect existence, well, not the perfect, but the easiest existence without you having to do anything and you getting everything that you need, what does that do to your soul? What does that do to your mind? How does it atrophy your very being. And at what point does convenience and comfort become existential in nature? Not at the level of, wiping out our species like biologically, genetically, but wiping us out spiritually. Yeah, hard questions, very hard questions. I will have to answer over the next 30 years. Now, another one to think about is who benefits the most when humans give up on each other and we replace humans with technology, with AI companions. It's obviously the AI companies. And there's just so much. The scary part, and this is why the erotica decision by ChatGPT or OpenAI was so concerning to me. It's not just about the surface level implications of it. Way too late into the night. Shouldn't be doing this right now. But it's about them opening the gates. It's about moving the aversion's window to something that should have been completely unacceptable. And I'm willing to die on some of these hills. Like a lot of people might say that, very old-fashioned and all of that. We should have. But I think certain companies, they should be responsible enough to think of the longer-term future. Like, what are we trying to... And Sam Altman is especially concerning for me. Again, don't want to make it about one person, one company. Don't give a damn. I mean, on some level I do, because, again, you got to know what you're up against. But anyway, Sam Altman, he's talked a lot about transhumanism. I was a big transhumanist back in the day. The reason I'm laughing is I used to be so many different things back in the day, and I outgrew them. So many. Because you grow older and wiser. Like, transhumanism is good in many ways, by the way. But the express intent to completely replace our humanity, to what end? Right, like, why? Like, if you have a good answer to the why, I'm all ears, I'm always open, I am in love with technology. I absolutely love technology. But you need to have good reasons why you want to build anything. You shouldn't just build it just because we can. The famous dialogue from Jurassic Park. Your scientists were so occupied with whether or not they could, they didn't stop to think if they should. Right, and transhumanism and accelerationism, which is again a part of that philosophy, an extension of it, deeply entwined in many ways. Well, not necessarily, but in some dimensions. Where I was going with this, I don't remember. Yeah, I know. Oh, I remember now. It was that these companies, they have so much to gain. They're making us want this, use consumerism and get us addicted to these TikTok like loops, treadmills, to derive any entertainment and meaning from, because we have taken away think about it this way. If you got this person and they've got the perfect partner, they're so happy in the relationship, they've got an amazing family, beautiful family, they won't need a lot from the world. Like, they'll be so deeply content, so deeply fulfilled, they're not going to want a lot. That is capitalism's nightmare. That is big tech's nightmare. What big tech wants you to do is to take away, again, it doesn't do this expressly, but again, this is where we're heading, based on where the choices that big tech's been making. If you replace a lot of the deeply meaningful things, sources of deeply meaningful things, emotions and experiences, like human relationships themselves, with Tinder, for example, you keep people on this. Tinder actually is the best example of it. Yeah, perfect. If you replace deeply enduring, meaningful love, then people are going to come back, because most people do want that, and they might have forgotten that they need it. I want to, talk on the behalf of millions of people, but psychologically, we just know that this is going to be true for majority of people who are stuck on these treadmills, because society, because these dating apps have conditioned them to, despite their own best intentions. Because we are weak creatures. Like society and culture, and even our own biology, when society and culture can technology can co-opt our own biology against us, then we're in a pretty dire place. And we've seen that story play out so many times, Tinder being a pretty damn good example, especially germane to the things that we've been talking about for the past few days. And this is a crucial question. What kind of intelligence, what kind of a mind would protect our humanity instead of eroding it? This is a central question that I've been trying to answer with LNT and the LNT mind that we are building, the Lumi mind that we are building. Because intelligence is the best thing. Consciousness coupled with intelligence, well, you possibly can decouple them, but separate conversation. Intelligence is amazing. AI is just another form of intelligence. Again, could be great, could be the best thing in the universe after humans, or could be a pretty dire thing. The question is, how are you designing that intelligence? Or at some point it will emerge, but what are the seeds, what are the things that you put in place from which it grows? For me, I care deeply about emotional intelligence being the core of it, augmented empathy being the core of it, and we've got some ideas that we want to explore around it when we build out our own Lumi mind. But I do believe, this is my people like Eliezer Yudkowsky and what's the name of that guy? Yampowski? No. Don't remember the name, but there are people who believe that by default ASI has to lead to human doom. I don't believe that for a second. There's a good chance that we might be able to not just prevent the worst of it, but an ASI might actually be aligned, it might be deeply empathetic to us. One of our theses when building LNT and with the moonshot project that we are doing with LNT Mind is that you want to build a system that's aligned by default, and there are a few things that are the core drivers if you want to satisfy that condition. We'll talk more about some of those ideas in another conversation, but you need to have that in place. Once you got that in place, then that intelligence serves you. It serves your longer term flourishing, it serves the flourishing of the human species, rather than operating at the beck and call of some megacorp or syndicate. And so the final choice, the final question, the fork in the road, it's not about utopia or dystopia. On some level it is. It's not about humans versus machines, so on some level it is. It's about civilization that uses intelligence to amplify love, deepen love, or a civilization that uses intelligence to award it or replace it or create the perfect simulacra of it. Which part do we choose? Which way? Western men and women? The meme. But yeah, we've got pretty big conundrum on our hands. There's this fork in the road. We've got to get it right. This is what gave me the urgency. I could have built, on some levels, I can build LNC later on. It's so, this is so me that I'll always want to build it, even if nothing of the sort would exist in the world in the first place. But I could have possibly built it in 2027. But after I thought about some of these issues, I was like, we've got to do it right now. Because if we don't get it right in the year 2026, we might never have the chance to get it right. So we've got to put our very best into this, into making sure that we go towards a civilization where we amplify the human essence. With that note, thank you for the time, and I'll catch you soon.